Welcome. I'd like to add my welcome to everyone to the 2018 Sackler Forum on Climate Change and Ecosystems. I'm Janet Franklin. I'm the co-chair of the steering committee, along with Yadvinder Mali, who is the co-chair invited by the Royal Society. And as you've just heard, so I'm just going to make a few remarks and housekeeping remarks to get us started here. As you've already heard, and thank you to Dr. Griffin and Ramakrishnan for taking time out of their other meeting to come and give us our charge. The Sackler Forum is jointly organized by the two societies. The topic of each forum is jointly determined by the leadership of both organizations. Once that topic has been determined, a steering committee is established, and that's where I came into this about a year ago. And here we are today. So in addition to Yadvinder and myself, I'd like to acknowledge the other members of the steering committee, Nancy Knowlton, Chris Field, Natalie Seddon, Martin Solon, and Monica Turner. And then also before I go on, I don't have a slide for this, I should have, but I also want to specifically acknowledge the staff of the two societies who really were the ones who organized this meeting and are also participants. So their bios are in your program along with all of ours, so we can get to know each other. So that includes Sarah Giles, who's a senior policy advisor for the Royal Society, Emma Woods, who's the head of policy for the Royal Society, April Melvin, who's a program officer at the National Academy of Sciences for the Atmosphere and Climate Board, as well as the Polar Board. I hope I have that right. And also Amanda Stout, who is the director of both of those boards. And so they're going to keep us on track here. So the scope of the forum, to reiterate, is examining the latest science on how climate change can affect terrestrial, aquatic, marine ecosystems worldwide. And in particular, we want to highlight current research frontiers, such as the effect of climate variability and extremes, interactions among stressors, thresholds and tipping points, potential for abrupt change, as well as trophic interactions. We also want to consider opportunities to assist and manage ecosystems for resilience and at the same time increase societal resilience to climate change. So that's the topic. And like all Sackler fora, the aims of this forum are to build new opportunities for international collaboration, to highlight the latest science, to identify research gaps and future priorities, and importantly, to discuss how research in the field might provide or inform solutions to international policy. So at this point, I was originally planning to introduce the forum by highlighting some very recent research findings hot off the press from the literature, including new remote sensing of the carbon cycle from space, calls for that, research addressing consequences of solar geoengineering for ecosystems. These are all things that have been published within the last couple of months, really. Using the past to predict the future, paleoscience to inform climate change studies, impacts of warming on crop losses to insect pests globally, the potential for ecosystem restoration and rewilding to help mitigate or provide a partial solution to climate change effects, human population policy as part of the discussion regarding climate change, and then interestingly, a legal challenge in this country on behalf of future generations. So I don't really have time for any of that. So I'm just going to highlight two, literally hot off the press pieces. One is this paper that came out, a week ago, that has the unstartling title, Quantification of Ocean Heat Uptake from Changes in Atmospheric O2 and CO2 Composition. And this has kind of gone viral in the science news media in outlets from The Guardian and The Washington Post to the Weather Channel, with headlines such as startling new research finds large buildup of heat in the ocean, suggesting a faster rate of warming, meaning we have less time to curb carbon emissions. And I hope some of the experts here in the room will help me to understand this important new paper. And then finally, the very recent report from the IPCC, which probably some of you in the room were involved in, now recently warning that allowing the planet to warm more than even 1.5 degrees C could have dire consequences for the Earth system and ecosystems. So with that, the forum, as you'll see in your program, is organized into three themes. The first theme is the frontiers of research on the threats and challenges that climate change poses to ecosystems. The second theme explores the scientific understanding of opportunities to assist and manage ecosystems. And the third theme addresses practical ways of implementing those opportunities and supporting solutions to international policy challenges. And our schedule in the next day and 3/4 is organized around those three themes. And so for each theme, we'll be starting with a small group of short keynote addresses on each topic. Each keynote is followed by an ample amount of time for discussion. Then there'll be a panel discussion with a moderator, and thank you to those who volunteered to be moderators of these panels and to be members of these panels. Panelists are making brief remarks, again, followed by lots of time for discussion. And then rinse and repeat for the other themes. At the end of each day, we then go into workshop mode, and we're going to workshop this by breaking into smaller groups. And thank you, those of you who volunteered to facilitate these workshops. Again, the staff and organizers have a great procedure for us to go to try to distill and consolidate the ideas that have come out of the talks and discussions in each case. All right, and then at the end we will have some time for a concluding discussion at the end to talk about next steps. So let me just mention a couple. So on the program, I'll just mention a couple of bookkeeping items that I've been asked to say. For those workshops and panels, Yadvinder and I, as we're moving the program along, we'll be asking some of you before the breaks to give up part of your breaks to meet with the staff to get ready for the next session, either for the panelists to meet with the moderator or for the workshop facilitators to work with meet with the staff so that we understand the drill and what rooms we're going to and things like that. All right. So I think that's all my bookkeeping announcements. And now to discuss dissemination of findings, I want to turn this over to my co-chair, Yadvinder Mali, who's going to talk a little bit about these. Right, and one more bookkeeping thing. I would imagine that during discussions when you're speaking, if you use your microphones, because I've already been admonished about that. We're being recorded and webcast, and so we need to use the microphones so that we can be heard.
Thank you, Janet. And likewise, welcome to you all for coming to this event. And we have a fantastic array of experts here covering the whole scope of terrestrial, aquatic and marine ecosystems. And I'm really looking forward to 2 days of learning lots and discussing a lot. But beyond these discussions, we are very keen to have some specific outputs coming out of this meeting. And we want some outputs both on the policy side and in the academic science publication side. And we have a few ideas here, but we're also very open to suggestions from you. So if you have other avenues you think could be suitable or other ideas, do approach me or Janet and come to us with your suggestions. And a key part of generating these outputs will be both the panel discussions and the breakout group discussions. So when you're having those discussions in the breakout group, think about what are the points that you can distill into something that can go into a policy brief. So have that in mind as you're having those discussions, and the people who are moderating and chairing those discussions will have that brief to try and extract concrete points out of the diversity and complexity of everything that's being discussed today. And so in terms of outputs, these are the ones that we're thinking of. So the two big UN conferences coming up, the CBD conference in Egypt next week, which may be too soon to actually get any realistic output, we recognise. But if anybody has any idea of, or is attending that, of ways that some of these things can be manifest there, do let us know. And then the UNFCCC conference in Poland in December is perhaps a more realistic deadline. And so we are hoping to have some policy brief emerged and approved in time for that event. And a number of us here will be at that event. And Natalie Seddon, do you want to raise your hand at the front there, is taking charge of that, developing that policy brief process. So if you have any thoughts or comments on that, do approach Natalie as well. But we'll be trying to canvass all your ideas and distill them and on a quite a rapid time scale during and after this meeting. So a summary of the forum itself will be published in early next year, around February. And then we also have had approval for a thematic issue of philosophical transactions of the Royal Society, which Venki mentioned at the start. And the actual exact dates have not been fixed, and we'll probably fix them after some consultation over these 2 days. But I'd imagine a submission deadline of around February next year, January or February next year, and publication middle to late of next year. And it's a great forum for publishing, because the editors are given a lot of scope in linking papers together and shaping the issue compared to many academic journals. So it should be an excellent output. We had an original, I think we've had about 18 papers titles in the original suggestion that we sent to the Royal Society that was approved. So this is formally approved by the Royal Society already. But I'm also hoping that additional papers will emerge from the discussions that we have here. So if you have new ideas, or if new collaborations or linkages develop from the discussions you're having over these 2 days, do feel free to suggest additional, probably not many more, but I think we could accommodate 3 or 4 more additional papers in this thematic issue. So do think about that as well. And so that's the main output. The other thing as an output, as mentioned, is that the event is being live streamed, and the videos of the presentations will be available online. So do feel free to disseminate those. And for those of you who are social media active, the event has a hashtag. It is Climate Ecosystems. So do feel free to tweet and circulate any thoughts and information coming out of this using that hashtag. So I think we're slightly ahead of schedule, but that's probably a good thing, considering how much we've got packed into this day. In terms of timekeeping, we have this daunting-looking lighting system up here. And for the keynotes, I believe green will be on all throughout the presentation. The amber will flash 2 minutes before the time's up, and red will flash when your time is up. And something similar will happen on the shorter panel presentations as well, I think. So on that, I think I'll hand over to Janet to chair the next session.